What is going on, everybody? This is Slick from Breaking the Clutch, back again with another video. We have another Halo Wars 2 balance update, and that's pretty awesome because it's been a while since we've seen any balance changes. I think the last time we did was alongside the release of Yap Yap, so I'm excited that they're still paying avid attention to this game as Awakening the Nightmare is on the way. It's going to be coming up, say, sometime this month, September 26th. It's not that far away, relatively speaking, so pretty excited to see them adjusting some things. So right away, overall themes, we're going to talk about the major changes and the things they're focusing on doing most importantly. Their goal overall seems to be comprehensive balancing pass for Yap Yap, tuning for Forge and Decimus, a major Isabel buff, I like that, I'm a huge fan of that, a rework to Grunt Mines to make them viable and correctly counter scouts, further buffs to Tier 2 vehicles, more counters to vehicle heroes available at Tier 1, strengthening the Tier 1 balance triangle, greatly improving core infantry and scaling them better into the late game, blitz card balance and costings, and blitz starting army balance. Looks like there's a couple other things they want to tackle as well. Generalizing, buffs to the Arbiter, Johnson, Cutter, Colony, Consano, and Anders, a balance pass on unit build times, removing the bonus counter units, RAM quality of life improvements, support units now cost power, overall hero balance, making Tier 1 slightly less dominated by heroes, APC units, say units that are also garrisons, for example, Phantoms and Mastodons, more viable. Let's see, balanced heal values across many units and structures. A unit with a higher heal value heals more slowly. So if you double the healing value, the unit would take twice as long to heal. Interesting. I'm actually very, very fascinated by like the fact that they're bringing them up now, all these changes now. Not sure why they didn't think about these in the first place, but hey, guess what? All the core leaders for DLC have rolled out. So now's a better time than ever, I guess. So let's jump right into the general balance changes. Cyclops and Hunter damage type changes versus light vehicles reduced by -43%, versus light and cover reduced by -33%, versus light armor reduced by -43% as well, versus building reduced by -56%, and heavy infantry reduced -45%. And the comments on our anti-vehicle is too general purpose and is too effective against other infantry and buildings, which is not intended. I don't know how I feel about this change immediately. I think it makes sense to make these adjustments and make things a little bit more balanced. Maybe not, you know, like big numbers like 50 and 40 and 30 even. Those might be extreme changes. I'm sure they have some more science. I don't want to make any quick judgments before I generalize or assume things before I've read all these patch notes, but what I think that might be a little harsh because Cyclops and Hunters have been seriously reduced. Especially Hunters are so different than Cyclops. I hate how they put them in the same general kind of field just because Hunters are like damn expensive. Cyclops are expensive too, but I just don't know how I feel about these big changes yet. Let's see what else they're talking about. Banshee, Hornet, and Protector Sentinel damage type changes versus medium increased by 7%, that's not bad, and heavy infantry increased by 33%. So they're trying to make air a little bit better against some infantry units, so that's pretty great, especially against medium things. I'm very excited to see something like that. Air units are intended to be a better counter to Tier 2 vehicles, which have received another buff. Oh boy, that's a little teaser. This change helps strengthen the counter units triangle air vehicles infantry air. Moving on, looks like they're doing some things to the Army of War Council. They've changed the power cost from 0 to 100, so now it costs 100 supply, 100 power. All heroes except goblins build time have gone, so that they're keeping the goblins. Goblins, you know, you can make 3 of them, so that makes sense. Build time has gone from 30, 33 to 35 seconds, all up to 45. So they have officially changed the hero pump time to 45 seconds. This is something the community has begged and pleaded and worried about since the hero meta came into the game. So that's something I'm very excited to see. It looks like they also have some comments on that. Heroes are now a slightly more costly decision, so players will need to think more carefully about a hero-centric build at Tier 1. This should help diversify Tier 1 builds. This also means heroes take longer to revive if killed, which makes that loss more costly and reduces the immediate appearance or reappearance of heroes in the late game. You guys in the BtC Discord, we were talking about this not too long ago, so it's almost like they're hearing us here. They want to make it so that heroes are, you get punished if you lose a hero, and I think that's so crucial because it's too easy to just make a hero and that's it. That's your army. That's your whole army. It's just one damn hero unit. Leader powers. Most leader powers now do 85% damage to light and light armored infantry. It affects all infantry except heroes, cyclops, and hunters. So that means your marines, your grunts, and a little bit everything else. All those little units, man, infantry units just suck compared to any leader power. So it's great to see things like Vortex, like an 85% reduction. That is so crucial to keep your infantry armies alive. That means that infantry armies will kind of make a comeback like they were, say, just before the colony season, and during, say, colonies release. Infantry units were such a very strong force to be reckoned with. It's good to see them probably brought back into a little bit of limelight, and that also explains the whole Cyclops Hunter nerf I was complaining about in the beginning, so I'm not as mad now. Marine grenades and grunt mines. Damage to scouts have been reduced by 9%, and damage to medium hero increased by 38%, which is awesome. That is great. That's what you need to see. Is I need to see grunt mines and grenades do serious damage to heroes, because there's no point in making Marines off the start anymore. There's just no point at all. The fact that they're reducing it by 9%, you know, that's good. Scouts should be able to beat most Marines. Marines should not be able to beat scouts just from a 400 upgrade for power. Grenades are too strong in my opinion, and ever since they were swapped over from the say mass command where you hit Y once and you see 4,000 grenades to every single time you tap Y, one grenade is thrown. Once they made that command change, it definitely makes more sense to make grenades weaker against scouts. Grunt mines, maybe not so much, but they do most certainly. If you just lay a bunch of grunt mines in front of your base, you could kill an entire Jackrabbit army. So I'm glad to see some, if they're buffing infantry in a sense that they're taking less damage to leader powers, it's good to see that they're also, say, reducing the infantry effectiveness. Ram damage. Ram damage to medium hero increased by 16%. Ram damage reflect versus scouts reduced by 25%. So they're trying to make RAM more effective across the board. There's infantry units that can ram, there are scout units that can ram, there are light vehicles that can ram. So all these things are going to be most certainly, that makes more sense. RAM should still be viable in a sense where it's not overpowered and it's usable too, but it's just not at the moment in its current state. Before this update, RAM is just not even, it's unreasonable except for those damn, those brute riders, man. That is absolutely insane seeing those guys chase down scout units. RAM quality of life changes. It's not over. RAM is now monocast. So what that means is that essentially it's the same kind of thing with the Marine grenade that I was just talking about. So instead of just hitting Y, all of your, like say right now, currently in the game, if you hit the Y button, if you have 25 ghosts, all of them will immediately ram at 1 unit depending on its HP. Now what it's saying is that RAM is now monocast. So in order you can essentially, if you just want 2 or 3 ghosts to ram a unit, you just tap the Y button 3 times very quickly. You go tap, 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 and then 3 ghosts or 3 whatever will ram a unit that you select. Similar to Marine grenades. They used to have Marine grenades on monocast. That was the word I was digging for earlier, by the way. Where you get you get an intense fucking swarm of grenades start flying towards your enemy units. It's like the damn arrows in the fights of Game of Thrones spoiler, and it's just crazy to see, and having them a monocast just makes more sense for the Xbox console. Units will enter the RAM state when further away from the target. That is good, because they need more run-up. RAM is not effective in the current state of the game. Reduce speed boost to prevent units going out of control while ramming. Also, incredibly important. How many times have you guys seen choppers do complete backflips in the air, or say you've lost a Jackrabbit because, say, if it's been RAM glitched off the map, for example, and things like that. Greatly reduced revving time to make RAM much more responsive. That means when you hit the Y button, RAM will happen very, very quickly. RAM damage bonus is reduced by negative 28% against core infantry to compensate for greatly increased efficiency. Awesome. Reflect damage taken from heavy infantry slightly reduced. Yeah, so they're making RAM reasonable and viable to use in game, which is awesome considering it's on so many units. Okay, moving on. We have scout damage versus buildings reduced by negative 25%. That is great to see because, say, scouts are just too strong in the current game. It's great to see, like, scouts should just be the direct response to infantry armies, and that's that. They shouldn't be able to go take down an enemy base. Like, say with 10 Jackrabbits, you shouldn't be able to melt an entire mini base in a matter of seconds. You can't necessarily do that, but you know what I'm saying. So it's good to see that they're reducing the scout damage versus buildings, especially ghosts. Ghosts are so killer against buildings. It's great to see that reduced. Core infantry versus light armor reduced by 17% versus buildings reduced 25%. So once again, they are trying to mess with the core infantry to make them more powerful, but not overpowered. And it's good to see because at the same time that they're spiking some crazy things, they're also lowering some things at the same time. Instead of just buffing, you know, say a certain unit by 300%, 350%, for example, they're buffing a unit by a certain percent, and they're also tweaking some things to make sure the buff isn't overpowered. That's good to see. That makes me a lot more comfortable when I'm seeing these things. Core infantry, when upgraded, grenades or mines beat scouts. Scouts beat Tier 1 anti-infantry and Tier 1 rush units. Tier 1 anti-infantry beats... Tier 1 anti-infantry units beat core infantry even when upgraded. Tier 1 rush units should be needed to attack bases or early expansions. Scouts and core infantry should not be better at this task. Amen, brother. That's exactly what I'm saying. Scouts and core infantry should not be better at taking down buildings than, say, some other units. So it's great to see that you're also going to have to, say, throw up a raid camp or a barracks at the same time, so that way you can get some of those anti-building units mixed in to add a little bit more variety early game. You should not just be able to pump that one unit and then kill everything. Command XP generation. Command XP per second increased plus 8%. CP thresholds for the 8th point reverted to the old lower threshold, so you accrue points at a slightly faster rate after the 8th. So that's exactly what they're going to do. Is they're going to start making it so your leader powers, you start earning quicker, because a lot of times in a lot of games you don't get to leader power number 6, 7, 8. You don't. Period. It's just the games just don't last that long. And a lot of the changes they're making are kind of encouraging early game engagements, so we're not going to see a lot of those late leader powers unless they have the command XP generation increase. So I'm good to see 8% is a very significant amount. That's solid. That's perfect. All Tier 2 vehicle HP and DPS increased by 10%. Additional changes noted in individual entries below. This is interesting. I'm excited for this. Tier 2 vehicle, they need to be buffed, period. There's nothing more to it. Tier 3 tanks, it also affects Colossus, Grizzlies, Wraiths, and Scorpion tanks. Damage type for versus heavy infantry, Cyclops, Hunters reduced by 18%, and versus in cover reduced 25%. So exactly that, what they're doing, especially say those Cyclops and Hunters, for example, they're going to reduce their effectiveness in a lot of different areas, but they're making sure that, say, the tanks cannot just drop these units. Tanks should always lose to heavy infantry, say at certain numbers, and heavy infantry should be effective against tanks, period. If it's effective against everything, I understand why they're getting scared and nerfing everything, but at the same time, you know, try to keep them at a healthy level. That's okay. UNSC tanks have reduced healing values, so they take longer to heal. This is good, once again, because I still haven't seen Wraith tanks used viably in games. I mean, they're so expensive. You get them so late. Keep them where they are. Don't even touch them. But I've seen Grizzlies often now with the Forge craziness. And then at the same time, also Colossi and Scorpions. I mean, Scorpions I see every now and again too, but I've never seen a Colossi before. I've never, ever seen Colossi, period. But Grizzly healing rate reduced by 35%. Colossi healing rate reduced by 29%. Scorpion healing rate reduced by 20%. So, yeah, exactly that. They're trying to make sure that they put those tanks in a reasonable location. There is more to this update. Jackrabbit DPS increase after researching spotter drone, reduced by 43%. So they are trying to make jackrabbits in a certain spot. They're making them not nearly as effective as they used to be. That is a massive nerf. That is nearly 50%. So after that, that spotter drone is definitely going to that upgrade might not be as viable depending. Acceleration reduced by 29%. So it means that they still have the same speed, but it takes them a while to get to that speed. So getting the max speed isn't always says that quick. Jackrabbits are not going to be that micro-intensive, crazy speed train Usain Bolt-ass unit that we're used to. Self-healing rate has been reduced by 33% as well. So that means that it still takes about 7.5 seconds. I think it is 7 seconds for the drone to kick in, but now it is 33% less fast than it was in the first place. Snipers. Oh my god, they're going to do something with snipers. Holy shit. Okay, sniper. Build time, 25 seconds to 20 seconds. Population cost, 4 to 3. Cost, 75, 150, 75, 135. Thank you, Jesus, my Lord. Or I'm not religious. Thank you, Atriox, for fucking making this happen. Snipers are now going to be so much more viable. It just, period, so expensive, takes so long to get out, you never even want to use them, and there's no point in even using snipers. You might as well go into vehicles and save all your power. Reducing that from 150 to 135 is solid. Population cost reduced and build time by 5 seconds reduced. We're going to see snipers a lot more in game. They're going to be much more viable, and good players are going to use snipers in excellent, crazy ways to win games more frequently. I'm very excited to see Tier 1 snipers in many more games. That's actually awesome. I'm very excited about that. Wolverine build time has been increased by 5 seconds, and the cost has been upgraded by 20 power alone from 150, 170 to 150, 190. I don't know about this. I think Wolverines were okay in their normal standpoint. And the problem is you could just see players mass them, and you'd never see air again. once they start massing a couple Wolverines, and all you need is 2 garages, and then you have 20,000 Wolverines very quickly. So I'm okay with those changes since they're not too crazy. Warthog DPS and HP increased by 10%. Thank you. Build time reduced by 4 seconds. That's not bad at all. And then fixed issues with Gauss where it was not an upgrade against many target types, and in particular was a large downgrade against light infantry. If you guys didn't know, Gauss turret sometimes, I shouldn't say sometimes, if you upgraded to Gauss turret, it legitimately would make Warthogs worse against some infantry units like, say, Marine swarms. I don't know how that happened, but DPS increased, HP is increased by 10%, build time reduced by 4 seconds. That's not bad at all. Warthogs might actually be a little bit more viable. Cyclops have been increased build time to 20 seconds. Damage per second has been upgraded, oh boy, by 15 and 12%. That is pretty exciting. I'm actually pretty, that's good. I think if they made Cyclops a little bit stronger and closer to, as I was complaining way back in the beginning of the video, making Cyclops a little bit more strong, and matching them closer to the caliber that Hunters are is very, very essential, especially with these balances they're doing to, say, the effectiveness towards buildings, units, and then, say, heavy vehicles in general. Hornet has been reduced cost. Wow, Hornets have gotten, that's great. Hornets have been reduced from 375, 325 build time, 20 seconds to 22 seconds. Incredible changes right there. Those little tiny adjustments really, really count with Hornets. Hornets are damn expensive. They're paper mache and balsa wood. They get shot down by 1 RPG Marine. So that's perfect. That's totally fine. Vulture, Phoenix Missile now uses ultimate damage type. Damage versus buildings reduced by 30%. Awesome. That's okay. I think that's very, very solid. The comments on that are, this reduces the ability of the Vulture to snipe HQ structures with the Phoenix Missile, which is overly effective in certain late game scenarios. The Vulture is still one of the UNSC's premier base crackers, but this gives a little more opportunity for counterplay and encourages players to use Phoenix Missiles more often against other targets. If it's never happened to you, UNSC players lately, especially Forge players, have been swarming Vultures and then, getting a rebuilt at their base once they die with a simple leader power push. And then what they do is they drop a bunch of Phoenix Missiles on a base. You'd see it. You'd just, like, all of a sudden you get a ping on the minimap. It would say, you're under attack. You go look, you wouldn't have a base anymore. It's like, oh, okay, thanks. I appreciate that. So changing that, making that 30% reduction may be too much, but still reasonable all the same. I'm excited to see what it looks like. That's what I want to test. Siege turret, damage increased by 22%. Oh, okay. All right, there's more. Kodiak range increased by 33%. Are you kidding me? Damage increased by 8%. Okay, so turtles, if they didn't learn from that the turret buff patch they did way back, I think it was season 2, you cannot really feed into the siege mantra. I think this is going to be a very broken thing. If not broken, it's going to be one of the most annoying things you've ever experienced, guys. Kodiaks are expensive and useless in many, many scenarios. This will make them much more viable and to a point where it's going to be, like I said, super annoying. In siege turrets, I don't think they needed any changes. I think siege turrets are perfect the way they were. But once again, we'll have to test and see. Nightingale costs from 400 supply 0 power to 360 supply 50 power. That's reasonable. Nightingales are too easy to make in mass, and especially early game. Or mid-game, early mid-game. So especially, but also at the same time, population costs have been reduced by 1. Adding the extra 50 power onto the cost is definitely something that needed to happen. It shouldn't just be, you can't have 2 air units in the UNSC air pad that are all supply intensive. Your UNSC builds were mostly supply intensive as they were, meaning that UNSC players would not really have to plan for the late game power eco. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, but generalizing, that's pretty much the case. So seeing Nightingales, even that 50 power, is going to make players have to make, say, certain decisions when they want to add Nightingales into their mix. Upgrades to Marines, HP per squad member increased by 9%. Damage per second increased by 24%. Velocity increased by 9%. So that's pretty crazy. Though there's more to combat tech engineer, HP increased 25, DPS increased 57%. Veterancy requirements increased by 25% to compensate for improvements. So they don't get veterancy nearly as quickly. However, they are now damn strong. I hope that means that they're also going to tweak grunts a little bit, because I just think that Marines might overpower grunts immensely now. Let's see. UNSC HQ heal value pass. Command 1 heal value 1 to 1.2. Command 3 is heal value to 2.8. Command 4 is heal value to 3.8. That's fine. That's pretty solid. Hellbringer, speed increased by 8%. Thank you. Hellbringers definitely need to be quicker considering what they are. They are, say, essentially melee units because their range is so short. So that's excellent to see. Build time has been decreased by 2 seconds. Not sure if I agree with that one. If you have a speed increase, you won't need a build time decrease in order to get the units across the map quicker, in my opinion. Base HP increased by 10%. That's great. They were so weak. They always skip the gym. Dispersion nozzles also increased squad health by 10%. That's fine. Damage slightly increased to balance neutral Marines, unchanged versus Marines, and slightly improved versus other light infantry. Yeah, in the comments here, Hellbringers still weren't performing their role as a rush or anti-infantry unit, so needed further buffs and needed to be able to counter the strengthened core infantry. I agree with those 100%. Moving on to Combat Salvage. Combat Salvage buff duration reduced from 180 seconds to 45 seconds. Oh my god, that's actually... That's a huge decrease. Per unit, VFX now lasts for the duration of the effect. So you can see when an enemy unit is under the effect of Combat Salvage. Costs increased. Oh, there we go. That's why. Costs increased from 1,500 to 1,500, 1,000. This is exactly what I'm talking about. They even mentioned here in the comments, Grizzlies and Vultures are most affected by this. They definitely need to have that cost of Combat Salvage effective or expensive as hell if they're going to reduce that. And at the same time, like Grizzly Vulture pushes are now going to be, you're going to have to be more careful because it costs a lot more. But at the same time, you also get it back quicker, so I don't know how I feel about that. It's going to be an interesting late game thing that's really going to push a couple of those, who has Combat Salvage. I think it's, what is it? It's Isabel, Forge. I'm sure I'm missing one right now, but of course anybody else that, any leader that has that's going to have a good late game now. Now let's move on to the Banished. This is awesome. This is across all leaders. Reworked Grunt Mines. When cast on enemy units, Grunts will chase and throw directly at the target. Throw range has been increased by 80%. Throw speed is faster. Arming time reduced by 83%. Damage reduced to account for being much more reliable and better at hitting. Improved slow on affected enemy vehicles. If you guys remember way back in Season 1 and 2, we'd complain about how Grunt Mines sucked compared to grenades from Marines. There's your answer. They have basically made Grunt Mines act like grenades. But it'll be interesting to see if they still say, like, what happens if I miss? Do they just lay on the ground? Because that makes them damn strong. Let's move on to Chopper. Splash radii on shrapnel rounds reduced by 60 and 25. Those are pretty big decreases. Marauder, DPS and HP increased by 10%. Marauder build time reduced by 3 seconds and heal value increased by 75%. So Marauders are going to be much more viable now. Suicide Grunt's damage multiplier against light armor reduced by 14%. So that means your infantry units with more armor actually will survive a lot more against Suicide Grunts. Damage versus light slightly increased to balance neutral against Marines. Unchanged versus Marines and slightly improved over light infantry. So they're trying to put Suicide Grunts in an interesting, like essentially anti-Marine, anti-Grunt position. I don't think they'd be used for anything else. Banshees no longer deal splash damage, greatly reduces their effectiveness against infantry. Build time has been added 3 seconds. Why would Banshees were so good in my opinion. I don't know how I feel about that one either. I think Banshees should be still in the same spot. I don't think they should be changed too much. It's kind of strange to see that. Elite Rangers cost from 125.90 to 90.125. Not bad. I'm assuming they're trying to put them more of in a sniper standpoint. DPS reduced by 13 and build time increased by 4 seconds. I don't know how I feel. I think Elite Rangers are really good the way they were as well. Looks like Reaver build time has been increased by 2 seconds, probably to equate for the Wolverine change. Oh man, don't do this either, man. Hunter's build time added 3 seconds, cost 160, 160, 140, 180. Assault beam upgrade has been reduced by 200 power. These things are okay. Don't know if I agree with build time, but cost, sure, that makes sense, I guess. And assault beam, you know, I guess that makes sense as well because you don't really see assault beam that much. Hunters are usually just strong in their own. So, I mean, I guess those changes are, you know, okay, they're acceptable. Infantry with the Ram ability, Grunt Riders and Goliaths. Damage multiplier versus Scouts reduced by 33%. Awesome. Jump Pack Brutes cost from 110.65 to 90.50. They added a slight air of effect to weapons, which makes them more effective against infantry squads with lots of members. Build time 17 to 15 seconds. Banished defenses. Cloak generator build time 40 to 45. Shield generator 30 to 45. Man, I don't know about that either, man. You stop nerfing the damn shield gens, man. The shield gens were the worst in their first stance, and then making them more costly definitely was enough. I don't know. 15 seconds onto a shield gen build time, man, it's going to cause people to think, oh, man. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't like that one either. Banshees, man. Shield gens, man. Come on. Support units, engineers cost from 240 0 to 220 30. Shroud costs 450 0 to 460. Don't like the engineer change. I think engineers are fine, but shrouds definitely needed to have a reduced supply cost and a power cost, because once again, that would be on the same thing on the banish side, 2 air units that are supply intensive, causing players to not think about their eco as much. Locust. I don't want any changes to my locust. Beam area of effect has gone from 50% to 25%. This is the area of effect when the beam goes through an enemy unit or structure. It doesn't affect the main target damage. That's right. That's interesting. So when the beam is going through something, it only does 25% of the damage it used to. Damage versus medium hero, medium AA reduced by 17%. So anti-air and heroes and medium vehicles, I believe, is what that stands for. Locusts are no longer, they're 17%. Ugh, stop hurting my babies. Damage versus buildings reduced by 10%. Once again, stop hurting my babies. Please stop. Oh my god. Moving on to Banished HQ. Builder 01 heal value 1.4. So they're making the same changes to Banished as well, so that they'd have a little bit better stance. So that's okay. That's totally reasonable. And that was that, guys. That is the first half. I'm going to be doing 2 separate videos on this patch update. This one is going to be dropping today on my opinions, and then tomorrow we will drop the second half that includes all of the leader-specific changes and also game type changes going forward with Halo Wars 2. And of course, guys, check back tomorrow so that way you can see that video. But for now, we will leave you with this. What do you guys think about all these changes? A couple of them are like, why the hell are you even doing? And then also some of them are like, oh yeah, that should have happened like since the game dropped. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. This has been Slick from Breaking the Clutch. Stay tuned tomorrow for the second half of all the leader changes. Thank you. We'll see you guys next time.